I'm not a lawyer, but there are some really interesting back and forth arguments happening in Durk's federal case right now, and I've read all the documents, so let me get you caught up. Quick refresher to make sure we're all on the same page. Chicago rapper Durk Banks is currently incarcerated in California because California prosecutors allege that he placed a bounty on rival rapper Quando Rondo's head. And then, according to the indictment, on August 19, 2022, Durk and members of his OTF label traveled to Los Angeles to carry out that hit. And the execution of that hit, according to prosecutors, resulted in the death of Quando Rondo's cousin. And so now Durk and his co-defendants are scheduled to go to trial in January of 2026. Now, let's talk about these arguments. So the first one has to do with the indictment being too vague. And a few weeks ago, Durk's attorneys, which is led by Drew Findling, filed a motion asking the judge to dismiss this case or order the prosecutors to provide a bill of particulars, which is basically a detailed list of exactly what prosecutors are claiming. And the reason Durk's attorneys are asking for this is because, according to them, the indictment is too vague, which prevents them from being able to prepare because they don't know exactly what they are defending Durk against. I made a video on that first motion a couple weeks ago, so you can go back and watch it if you need more context. Prosecutors have now responded to that motion, basically saying, y'all have everything y'all need to prepare and everything y'all need to defend him. In this response, the federal prosecutors say they've laid out the motive for this hit, which was retaliation for Durk's friend King Von being killed in Atlanta in 2020, that Durk used coded language to let people know that there was a hit, that Durk allegedly orchestrated getting these people to Los Angeles to carry out this hit, and the prosecutors say that they've laid out at least 27 overt acts showing how the co-defendants tracked Quando Rondo's car for hours and then ambushed him and his cousin at the gas station, leading to the cousin's death. And on top of that, prosecutors say they've handed over a ton of discovery that further lays out this charge, including 37,000 pages of records and reports, over 250 pages of witness statements, 310 gigabytes of audio and video evidence, and data from over 30 phones and social media accounts. And so the government's position is y'all have everything y'all need to defend him. And this bill of particulars is really just an attempt to get prosecutors to reveal exactly how they plan on proving their case, when in reality, the prosecutors say they don't have to reveal that. They only have to reveal their theory of the case, and they say that is pretty simple. Durk promised money or music opportunities to anyone who killed Quando Rondo, and then his co-conspirators flew to Los Angeles to act on that promise. That's the theory. Now, Durk and his legal team have responded to the government, basically saying, y'all are talking about everything except for what we are talking about. Durk's team is really clear that Durk isn't like the rest of his co-defendants because he's the only one facing this murder for hire charge. So he isn't accused of tracking the car, being at the gas station, ambushing anyone, or even discharging a firearm. Durk's link to this crime is that it was ordered by him. And so to defend him against this murder for hire charge, they need to know when, where, how, and under what circumstances it was ordered. They say right now the best they know is that at some point between November 6, 2020 and August 22nd, 2022, Durk allegedly made clear in coded language. Making something clear in coded language is funny. That he would pay a bounty or give music opportunities to anyone who killed Quando Rondo. But they haven't said a date in between those 2 years. They haven't said how it was actually communicated, like on text or on a call. They haven't said what coded language was used, and they haven't said what direction he allegedly gave. And so to further prove this point, Durk's team gives some examples in their response. They say, imagine prosecutors believe that on January 5th, 2021, Durk said the eagle has landed, and that was the coded language used to offer the bounty. But Durk's team says if they knew that this was the government's theory and they had evidence that the eagle has landed was really about a meeting or a show or anything other than a murder, they could adequately prepare and defend him at trial. But without knowing those kind of specifics, they can't research, investigate, or prepare any kind of defense because they don't know the date, time, and circumstances to which they are defending him against. And learning all this information at trial, they say is trial by surprise, which would be unfair to Durk Banks. In their response, Durk's team also responds to the idea that they should be able to use the thousands of pages of discovery and hundreds of gigs of video evidence to understand what the government's theory is. And to that, Durk's team says, y'all's witnesses can't even decide if there was a bounty or not. So how are we supposed to know? Apparently, one of the government's witnesses, PW1, first told prosecutor that there was no bounty and that he agreed to commit this murder under duress. But then he later told prosecutors that there was a bounty and one of the co-defendants stayed back in LA in order to collect it. So again, to this, Durk's attorneys say, we can't use the discovery because it only leaves us confused as to what y'all believe actually happened. And so they want the indictment dismissed or a bill of particulars provided by the prosecutors. Now, let's move on to the second back and forth that's happening in this case. And that has to do with what's called other acts evidence, which is evidence that goes beyond the actual incident, but what prosecutors are arguing helps tell the story of the incident. Prosecutors basically are arguing that they want to be able to talk about the death of Durk's best friend, King Von, because according to them, that's the motive behind this Quando Rondo shooting. But Durk's team says, absolutely not, because that has nothing to do with Durk. The team says Durk wasn't at the location or even in the same state as King Von when he was killed, and the person who killed him, a man named Timothy Leaks, is not involved in this current case at all, so they don't feel like it should be mentioned. The government is also arguing that they want to be able to discuss a May 2021 shooting in which Quando Rondo was allegedly targeted. But again, Durk's team says that has nothing to do with Durk, and the only person tying Durk or his OTF label to that incident is one of the government's witnesses. Next, the government is requesting to discuss the control Durk has over his OTF label. And to do so, they want to admit some text messages, a voice memo, and some of Durk's music lyrics. But to this, Durk's team says, y'all are taking all of that stuff out of context and it has nothing to do with this case. And then finally, prosecutors are arguing that they want to be able to discuss the 2022 murder of a man named Stephen Mack because they say that also plays into this case. But again, Durk's attorney says the victim in that case was not Quando Rondo, so it really has nothing to do with this case. So the government wants it all included and Durk's attorney wants it all excluded. And then the last back and forth has to do with the jury being anonymous because the government says that the prosecutors nor the defense should have the actual names of the jurors for their protection. And Durk's attorneys are saying, yes, we should. It looks like there is a hearing scheduled for November 18th where both sides will be arguing some of these motions. So maybe we'll see next week how the judge rules on some of this stuff. But what y'all think? Particularly about that first argument. Do you think Durk's team has a point about being aware of the specifics for this charge, or do you think they have enough to defend him? Let me know.